We usually use the term walk on water to refer to someone who's above reproach. But when we say that the aggressive and belligerent basilisk lizard walks on water, we don't mean that it can do no wrong. Getting away from enemies as a little lizard can be tough, but not if you've got a miracle or two up your sleeve. But it's all about staying ahead of the danger in style here in life, death, and taxonomy.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and Taxonomy. It's your 30 minutes of interesting animal information. I'm Joe.
And I'm Carlos.
Thank you to Cassie for the creation of our theme song. To hear more of Cassie's music, please search Cassie Michelle on YouTube or Spotify.
And thank you to Johanna for the creation of this week's artwork. To check that out, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter at LD Taxonomy or visit us at our home on the web at ldtaxonomy.com. And a very special thank you to our patrons, Tristan Taylor, Jesse Raspulich, Carol Raspulich, Paul Chomo, and Richard Kaspar. Thank you so much for your support. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks for helping us keep the lights on.
And today we're talking about a little king that is named after the King of Kings. But more on that later.
Dag gummit. Now my nitty-gritty nomenclature is just out the window.
I didn't look specifically.
It doesn't matter. You know.
Yeah.
It was right there on the Wikipedia page. So whatever. We'll entertain this farce. This charade.
Well,
this facade.
Before we get into it, I'm not in my normal studio, deluxe studio. So you might hear refrigerator sounds and
you're in a refrigerator
clicking. Yeah, that would be, if you could hollow out a refrigerator, that would probably be a pretty good sound recording studio.
I don't know. Yeah,
you wouldn't have any room, but yeah.
You'd also survive a nuclear blast.
Yeah, according to reputable sources.
Imbiamba Jones.
Yeah. I'm also, if you're watching the video, I'm in front of some Venetian blinds, so it's very like talking head on The Office kind of shot.
You just do the whole thing like you're in an interview. I'm interviewing you about your time as a podcast host.
Yeah.
I wish I could say more about The Office as a reference to keep this joke going, but I can't because I've never seen it. So let's move on.
Just look up like one meme on like Facebook or Instagram, and you will see the entire show in memes after that.
I've seen lots of little clips.
The algorithm force feeds it to you.
So much of it is quotable that like it's just jam-packed into every YouTube video and all this stuff, and people quote it constantly. And it's like people doing and saying relatively normal things, so it just like kind of fits with normal life. But yeah, I guess.
But we're
not for me.
Talking about The Office.
Yeah, maybe when you are you search The Office, you'll find this episode because of how much we've talked about it. That'd be nice. That would be
incredible. In fact,
if ldtaxonomy.com showed up when you typed in The Office into Google because of this episode, that would be spectacular. And also, I would renounce any conceit that I know anything about SEO.
Google's helpful content update is wild. We have no idea what's going on with that.
Shaking things up, Rusty Brick. Anyway, yes, we're talking about the green basilisk lizard, also known as the plumed basilisk lizard, also known as the double-crested basilisk, also known as the Jesus lizard, for reasons that will become apparent later. We're also calling it here the saintly Slytherin and the gracious Galilean.
I would also go with the blasphemous lizard.
Blasphemous.
Yeah, blasphemous. With a B.
Wilson Blasphemous.
Yeah.
Best Daredevil bad guy.
But we're gonna just go straight into the description?
Not unless you have some taxonomy for us.
This
is life. This isn't life, death, and lizard descriptions. This is life, death, and taxonomy.
Life, death, and lizard descriptions. That would be a very niche show. I think we'd be out of ideas by now.
There's a lot of lizards.
That's true.
We just wouldn't have very much to say that would differentiate. Some of the episodes would sound very similar.
Well, let's talk about their taxonomy. They're in the kingdom, love, and are in the kingdom Animalia. They're in the phylum Chordata. They're in the class Reptilia. The order Squamata, we've been here several times. The suborder Iguaniae, a contemptible order.
Why is it contemptible?
Floridian. And dealing with the iguana invasion.
They're fine. I mean, they're not supposed to be there, but they don't. They're not dangerous.
Well, they burrow sometimes. Well, they eat plants. So if they eat plants in your yard, then you might not like that. But they also burrow.
True.
So if they burrow under bricks and sidewalks and stuff, then it can crack the sidewalk. Some structural damage, but mostly it's just an invasive species that's doing very well because everything does well in Florida.
It's a breeding ground for anything that does not need cold weather to survive.
Mm-hmm. The generalists' playground. But it's in the family. Corey in the house. I mean, Corey Toffinidae. Corey Toffinidae. It's in the genus Basiliscus, and the species is Basiliscus plumifrons.
Yeah, Basiliscus plumifrons, which means feathered little prince, or little king, or chieftain, or something like that. Since you already know it, we might as well say it. But since we're in the business of naming things, it's time for my favorite part of the show, critter groups, which I have rapidly put together in the last 15 seconds.
You could have said, you could have made the choices, what is it, frilled little prince, speckled little prince, and I would have still had a run for my money.
I put feathered little prince, plumed snake, feather on the water, like it's some sort of Native American, and then splendid chieftain. I think you would have gotten it immediately. But we have, so this is the plan now that I just put together. This is the part of the show where I ask you, Joe, a question. The question is the same every time. What is the name of a group of this animal? Or what is the term of venery? Or what is the collective noun? So we're talking about a lizard here, and we already know that a group of lizards is called a lounge, and that's it. It's the only term of venery for it. So, since you already know what the nitty-gritty nomenclature is, what is the term of venery for the mythical legendary creature, the basilisk? The turn you to stone if it looks at you animal.
The king of beasts.
Is it the king of beasts?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it just has to look at you and you turn to stone. There's really isn't too much you can do about it. I'm actually surprised. Spoiler alert for the Chamber of Secrets. I mean, it probably looked at the bird before it pecked its eyes out, so I'm surprised the bird didn't turn to stone. Should be called Harry Potter or it should be called Fox the Phoenix in the Chamber of Secrets because he does all the work.
Harry Potter in the Chamber of Plot Holes.
The Chamber of Deus Ex Machinas.
Yes.
But yeah, okay. So in mythology, A basilisk is a rooster serpent, chimera-ish creature that has the ability to turn anything that looks at to stone. I'm not. Some sources say that you have to look into its eyes, and it has to look at you, or it just has to look at you at all. I guess your mileage may vary because it's not a real thing. But based on the official Dungeons and Dragons manual, a group of basilisks has a term of venery. So, Joe, is a group of mythical basilisks a statuary of basilisks, B, a bloat of basilisks, C, a flagel of basilisks, or D, a drainage of basilisks?
I'm going to go with a statuary. That seems on brand.
Is that your final answer?
Mm-hmm.
Ding, ding, ding. I guess that's the result of me putting this together in 20 seconds.
Well, because
you immediately got it.
This was made by the Wizards of the Coast, who like are good at story writing and like making things thematic. So it's not written by whoever actually like usually comes up with terms of venery, which means it makes sense if it makes sense. A real term of venery makes no sense. So the fact that it's a statuary and that's thematically appropriate led me to, and it was created by Wizards of the Coast and not a real term of venerist.
So if I had said Dungeons and Dragons, you would have second guessed.
Well, I know it's fake. So I know like the crack team behind terms of venery wasn't involved.
the 19th century crack team of European explorers wasn't on the case on this one.
If they were, it would be like a flagellation or something like that.
I did put flagel in there. That was me typing letters until I figured something out. I was just FL flart. No, that's not going to work. Flagel. There we go. But yeah, so it's a statuary of basilisks. That's something you can wow your friends with at the next dinner party if they ever ask what a group of basilisks is called.
It's even
which
more
is not the case
up,
for this.
It's even more made up and contrived than an actual term of venery, because it's about a fake thing.
Yeah. I just think of the basilisks from Dark Souls, which are these like giant-eyed frog thingies that spit small-eyed stone. I mean, yeah, they have small eyes, but giant fake eyes. They just look like big frogs, and they spit
gas.
Like a gas at you that turns you to stone. And they're not as intimidating as the Harry Potter giant.
Until you're in a small room with them
thing.
And you're just covered in this gas.
Yeah, but like even so, they're not intimidating. It's just the fact that there's 20 of them and you're playing Dark Souls. Which I guess, I mean, Harry Potter is basically playing Dark Souls because every year is just really, really tough for him.
And it gets tougher and tougher.
Everything seems stacked against him, and he dies and comes back a lot, and it's everything's medieval. Harry Potter's just Dark Souls. I'm a game journalist. But yeah, we're not talking about the mythical creature. We're talking about a little lizard. Why don't you tell us what it looks like?
Yeah, okay. It's not anything like the giant cockatrice looking thing or a big long serpent. It's a lizard. It's an iguana shaped thing. They're long green reptilians with specks of white, and sometimes they have black stripes on their tails. They are similar in shape to common iguania members. Males have pronounced crests on their heads and fin-shaped or fin-like spines on their back and tail. Fringes, if you will. And then females are sleek with no pronounced spinal fins, though they have a subtle crest on their heads. So that's what they look like. And then like juveniles are like just straight up lizards. They don't have any frills or crests.
Chills or thrills.
Mm-hmm. But how big are they? Iguanas, like green iguanas, can be huge. So what are we talking about here? What do these cousins of theirs stack up to be? So welcome to the Beloved Measure Up segment, the official listener's favorite part of the show, when we present the animal size and dimensions in relatable terms through a quiz that's fun for the whole family. It's also part of the show that is introduced by you when you send an audio of yourself saying, singing, or chittering the words measure up into ldtaxonomy@gmail.com. We don't have a new measure up intro, so we'll look back in the archives for our greatest hits. We don't have a new measure up intro, but we did get an email from a real person that has listened to the show, not somebody looking for a guest post situation.
We've gotten emails from real people before.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
always
Oh, yeah.
nice.
Just not like recently.
Not as often as we get batch emails.
So, this person named Amani says, "Thank you guys for making the only podcast I listen to. I started listening last year from the beginning, and I'm over halfway through. There's a lot of episodes. It's going to take a bit.
Nice.
It's not just the fun facts, but also the way you guys deliver it. You're both very likable and funny. Thank you."
That's a lot of pressure. I was kind of hoping we could write on just the facts.
She's not saying she expects us to be. Well, I guess she does expect us to be like. I hope we continue to be likable and funny in the second half of the catalog.
I was kind of hoping if for some reason we had to just Ben Stein this and just say the facts as bland as possible, that it would still be entertaining because the facts are cool. But now I gotta be funny.
I love the cover art you have for each episode. Shout out to Brian in particular for some of my faves. If this person is only halfway through, then
she's only seen the Brian's handiwork.
Amani is in the Brian years.
They're like the Thatcher years. It's just the 80s for us. It's the Brian years.
I'm not sure how many offers you get for art, but I'd love to contribute if you have any spare slots and need someone to fill them occasionally. We have no people asking to fill art slots, but we have dedicated artists in the Brian years was Brian, and now we're in the Johanna years.
The Johannian era.
Yeah. I'm looking to build a scientific illustration portfolio, so it would be cool to tie into my favorite in the world podcast. Very good. Very good. It seems
favorite in the world podcast. Love it.
It seems like your art needs are being met, so I don't mind just being another name on an emergency list. It's good to have an emergency list, that's for sure.
So this person, Amani, not only listens to the show, but listens to the very end of the show. That's the last thing.
That's right. That's dedication.
That is nice.
Well, if you look up Velvet S, I think it's Velvet's Art or Velvet Sart, Velvet S Art on Instagram, you can see Amani's work, and it's very good.
Yeah, check that out.
This dog that is a clown is excellent. Okay, let's go. Without further ado, the listener's favorite part of the show. That's a bark. Singing, chittering, barking. This one was from Laura Jessica.
Is this the one where the person is barking and it sounds just like a dog?
Yeah, it might be. Here is another one. I tried to bark it this time. So this might be a person barking.
This is a person.
That's incredible.
My sensors went up again. I was like, oh, that sounds like it might be a person, but it was a very, very good impersonation of a dog.
It is an impersonation indeed. Thank you to Alara once again. There are several that Alara has sent in. Maybe we'll mine that. Rich vein.
Vein.
Mr. Pocket. Okay, let's talk length. They're 10 inches or 25 centimeters snout to vent, which means snout to the cloacal vent, which is not including the tail. So how many green basilisk lizards go into the road to Emmaus?
I'm sensing a theme here.
Here's a hint. Luke describes a post-resurrection event in which Jesus appears to two disciples that are walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus. Luke records that Jesus was kept from being recognized by the disciples until they reached their destination and sat and ate with him. So how far did they walk without recognizing him? Although they met on the road, so it's not the exact.
I was going to say, like, from where to Emmaus? Yes, it must be from Jerusalem.
Jerusalem to Emmaus.
But yeah, it probably wasn't the whole way. I have no idea. Recently, I've been looking a lot at a map of ancient Israel, because as I'm reading through, like, Samuel and stuff, I'm like, where are all these places? I don't know. I have not seen, like, Emmaus just hasn't popped up yet. I mean, it's there, obviously, but I just haven't been looking for it.
Famous painting of the road to Emmaus, which is like a nice little like forest landscape, and then people walking along a road. And it's in our house because a family member like painted it, recreated it, and I thought because her name was in the corner. Growing up, it was there all the time. I thought that was an original thing she did, and I thought and then I saw it later, Road to Emmaus, famous painting. I'm like, what? This is in our house. This is an incredible painting.
That would be pretty crazy though.
The recreation she did was quite good. She's talented.
I want to say that this is like a day's walk. That may not be the case. I don't remember what the exact wording is, but it seems like these are people leaving after Passover from Jerusalem back to Emmaus, and I don't remember there being any indication that they like stopped and camped or went to any other cities. So I imagine, and then Jesus revealed himself while they were eating at the end of the day. So I assume it's one day. So maybe it's like, they walked a lot back then. Maybe 30 miles. Oh, that would be a long way to walk, but
that would be quite the march.
I mean, it's not impossible.
You shot womp rats back home?
It's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home. All right. I don't know. 30 is good because it hedges for in case this was a multi-day adventure. And I'm missing something. So 30 miles. 190,000 lizards.
Final answer.
Yep.
The correct answer is 48,000 lizards.
Oh boy. Emmaus is like sisters. It's like Minneapolis and St. Paul.
The distance between these two first century cities has been described as 60 stadia. And a stade is 625 Roman feet, or 185 meters, or 606 feet, or 125 paces. So there's a range of what the stadia is, and the upper range puts this about 12 kilometers, or 7.4 miles.
Ah, Easy peasy.
Yeah, it's
do
the
that
next,
in the afternoon.
next door. If you look at a map, they look quite close.
Yeah, I don't know. I was looking when I last time I looked at a map of ancient Israel, I was looking for places like Gibeah and Shiloh and Mizpah and stuff like that. I was not looking for Emmaus, but now we know. I figured it was within a day's walk. I just thought they walked faster. I don't know.
They probably did like keep a good brisk pace.
You gotta.
7 miles in a day is decent. We've hiked something similar, right? But that was up and down. So
in the Boy Scouts we hiked like 12 to 15 miles a day on some of our longer hikes.
Yeah.
Just trying to get from place to place. And it was really hard, but that's not our livelihood. So if like all we did was walk from place to place, and every year we had to walk like from our desert town to the Jerusalem for the various festivities, then I feel like I'd be a 10-mile hike is nothing.
Yeah, strong legs on these guys.
Strong legs, stronger sandals.
Let's talk weight. There's about 7 ounces or 198 grams. How many green basilisk lizards go into the weight of 5,000 tilapia?
What?
Here's a hint. Tilapia is sometimes called St. Peter's fish because it is believed to be the most likely fish species caught by the disciples and fed to the 5,000 by Jesus in the feeding of the 5,000. Matthew only records that 5,000 men along with their families ate and were satisfied. So they probably all didn't eat a whole fish. However, when women and children are factored in, 5,000 fish could be somewhere close to the weight of the fish consumed at the feeding of the 5,000. It's probably overshooting it.
All right, my answer is 23,000.
Lizards?
Lizards. 23,000 worth of lizards were fed to people that day.
Final.
Tilapia's worth of lizards. No, lizards worth of tilapia. There we go.
Yeah.
Yes, 23,000.
The correct answer is 57,142 lizards.
Oh, I assumed each tilapia was 2 pounds.
Each tilapia is 5 pounds. Big fish. I think your estimation is probably closer to what they actually ate, because it says there's 5,000 men and their families, so that means like there could be 5 kids all eating,
and they were super hungry.
Yeah, but
I would be surprised if each person didn't eat a whole fish.
Maybe 5 pounds? No way.
I guess that is a really big fish.
And the way it's described, we've talked about this before. Like, what in this miracle? What did it look like? Did you hand out the fish and then there's another fish in the basket? I think.
Did I tell you I was like thinking about making, like, this was years ago. I was thinking about making a podcast, which was like, what would it have looked like to be here at these miracles?
Yeah.
Like, what exactly did it look like to have a pillar of fire coming down or something like that?
In Matthew,
and this is a weird one.
In Matthew, it says at the end that they collected pieces that filled so many baskets. So I think it was more likely that pieces were being like ripped off, and like, this fish is not being diminished, or this bread is not being diminished, because it says Jesus blessed the 5 loaves and 2 fish. It doesn't say.
Kind of similar.
It never says that those things were multiplied. But these 5 loaves and 2 fish fed all 5,000 people. So I think it's like.
So you just rip off a piece and then it
pass it along.
Visibly grows back.
Yeah, something like that.
Or it like grows into its own fish, like a starfish.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
It's kind of like Elijah and the widow and the unending jars of oil and flour. Like it just never
that's
runs
what
out. I suppose you could just like unstopper them and turn them over, and they would just dump out forever.
Now imagine being the first few people being fed, like served by the disciples, and they're like, "We gotta spread this real thin." So the disciples are like ripping off.
Here, have an
tiny
eyeball.
pieces. Yeah, and then like, oh, it's not going down, and so like the last few people are getting like full fish, and then the first people are like, well, this is clearly unfair.
Well, to bring this conversation about the Bible back to witchcraft, in the end of Harry Potter, they have that thing where like the if you touch it's the Gemini curse. If you touch something, it immediately springs into two, and then it springs into two again. And so maybe it's just pops into, like a loaf of bread just pops into two loaves of bread. Or maybe they just kept closing the basket. Whenever they opened the basket, there was more in there.
Well, yeah, but just the fact that at the end, it doesn't say, and we had this many fish and this many loaves of bread. It says pieces. So I think it's like, it wasn't like being multiplied by full fish. I think these 5 loaves and 2 fish regenerated continuously as they passed out pieces.
That still would have been crazy to watch. No matter how you slice this, literally, it would have been crazy to watch.
It is a miracle either way.
Very true. But we've got other miracles to talk about.
Okay. Let's talk some fast facts before we get into the major fact. Males are extremely territorial. They will control a territory with several females and his hatchlings. Green basilisks are kept as pets, but males are aggressive and don't like to be held and will scratch and bite you. So stop doing that. Let them be in the wild. They will not spark joy. They can also be kept with. They can't be kept with other males. So in the wild, they're territorial, but if you put them in the same terrarium, they're not. They're going to be upset with one another.
They're going to go all beta fish.
Females present to males when they are ready to make some omelets. They lay as much as 15 eggs in a burrow in soft sand. And basilisks are omnivorous and prefer insects and berries. So iguanas are like almost completely vegetarian, although I'm sure they wouldn't turn up other things.
Are cockroaches too?
Yeah. But these guys are omnivorous. They eat insects and berries, but they can also eat flowers and seeds and small fish and reptiles and amphibians. And that's all I got. Do you have any big facts? Thick facts?
Thick facts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And but it involves being quick, so that's good. So, like many lizards. Oh, I didn't name this one. We'll call it Walking on Sunshine. Like many lizards, the basilisk's response to being on the menu of a hungry snake or bird is to run away as quickly as possible. And as my dog Morph can attest, they're quite the speedy little fellas. Because he always tries to catch lizards, and he's pretty fast, so he does catch them sometimes. But they're tricky. But when you are a smallish lizard in South and or Central America, where these guys live, the threats can come by land, by air, or even by sea, or river, or lake, or more likely river. So jumping into the water and swimming is not the greatest idea when there's a caiman or an anaconda on your tail. But that actually wouldn't be much of an issue if you weren't exactly in the water when you made your escape. What if I told you that the basilisk was so fast it could run on the water? That's right, it can literally run across the surface of a body of water. No tricks. It actually does that. I remember seeing a YouTube video showing this runner has this this really great technique for running on water, and it shows him like just sprinting like off the shore of a lake and just into the lake, running across it for like 10 steps before falling in. I was like, what? What is that? It turns out they just had like some glass or something underneath the water. He's just running on the glass. But I remember as a kid thinking, like, this was early YouTube. I'm thinking like he's unlocked like chi walking or something like that.
Have you ever seen like videos of that? There's like this, I forget what it's called. It's like this thick viscous liquid that if you stand in it standing still, you sink. But if you continuously like dance a jig or like step up and down, then you will stay on the surface.
No, that is real?
That's real. That must be real. It's very
pretty freaky.
Yeah. It's kind of like quicksand.
I'll have to look that up.
Like that kind of like, it's sort of like the opposite of quicksand. If you don't move, you sink. It
sucks you down.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'll have to look that up. So the way that the basilisk lizard can do this, and this is, by the way, this is why it's called the Jesus lizard, and why we've been talking so much about Jesus, and the Sea of Galilee and all this stuff. It's because it can, run across the water, even though there's no indication that Jesus ran. He walked, and so did Peter. But the way that the lizard does this is not by divine power. It's by hiking up on its hind legs. So it actually becomes bipedal in this when it's doing this. So it's a lot like a person. And it wheels its feet around really fast, which is notably unlike a person, and basically propellers itself across the water. Insects can walk on water, but in fact, if you like a bunch of ants fall in the water, they might link up together to make the world's worst raft. But this is due to the fact that they aren't heavy enough to break the surface tension of the water. A 3 foot, or I guess 10 inch, but 3 feet with its tail, basilisk can't rely on surface tension. It's too big. So what happens is the back of this basilisk's feet spread out. Kind of flatten and spread out so that it maximizes the amount of surface area that's making contact with the water. And then when the basilisk's foot enters the water at a high speed, it displaces the water and creates an air cavity. And that's, if you remember us talking about air cavities, then you have been listening from the beginning, because that is a mantis shrimp fact. The same air cavity that mantis shrimp use to KO fish it's like this. It's not quite as fast. Obviously, mantis shrimp is just like blisteringly fast, and the air cavity like is briefly hotter than the surface of the sun. Go check out that episode. I think it's episode 5. I just told you not to listen to our early ones, and now I'm telling you to listen to our early ones. But it's a similar principle. Like if you move fast enough through the water, you will displace the water so that there is, before the water rushes back in to fill the air cavity that you've created. And what the basilisk will do is push off of this air cavity. So it'll push its foot down, which will create the air cavity underneath it, which is like just a powerful bubble, the most powerful bubble. And then once that's there, it'll then push off of it to rotate its leg again and repeat the process. It can move up to 5 feet per second, which at first I was like, that's got to be super fast for a lizard. But I mean, if you were to relate it to body size, if you include their tails, then that would be like us moving at 10 miles an hour, which is not very fast. But I guess if you compare it to their snout to vent size, that'd be like moving 33, 35 miles an hour. That's like Usain Bolt speed. So that is pretty darn fast. But it's all about having low body mass, having wide enough flippers, and moving very quickly. And it's not just a matter of having a propeller that just spins in a circle. It actually has to push down to create this air cavity and then push off of it. So it's actually been the study of a subject of study for robotics experts trying to figure out how they can create like maybe a man-made version of this that could sprint across the water, which would be terrifying if a robot just could sprint across the water at you. So basically, if you got some flippers and were able to windmill your legs fast enough, and the water was like 70% salt, you might find yourself skimming across the water. It's unlikely that any of those things will happen, but and the basilisk lizard can only do this for about 20 feet. But when they're they're usually just trying to get away from immediate threats and going across small ponds or rivers, so that's usually enough to get to shore or to get to safety. And I encourage anybody, when they sit down and have a minute, look up the basilisk lizard running across water, because it's pretty crazy. It's just this lizard that's chilling out on a rock in a lake or something like that, and then suddenly it just gets up on its hind legs and just sprints across the water away, and it's actually pretty funny to watch. It uses its tail as a counterweight. Its tail is like we said, it's 10 inches long. Its body is, but then its tail makes it up to 3 feet long. So it's more than twice its body length. So it acts as a good counterweight as it does its propellering across the water. And then if it doesn't make it to shore, the amount of time it has to run across the water, then it can swim, and it can swim underwater for up to an hour. It can hold its breath for that long. Which, again, if you're running away from, if you're trying to escape a crocodile or something like that, isn't going to help you all that much. But if you just made some serious distance and bewildered the heck out of whatever was chasing you, then it seems like you might stand a chance. And basilisks can do this basically from birth, from hatching. So it is, it's not completely unique to basilisks. There's another species of lizard that can do this, but this is not a very common trait. And they are still studying exactly how this mechanism works. I looked up like a research paper on it, and it very quickly got too complicated for me to understand. So then I found a Wonderopolis version of it that explained it to children, and I understood it much better. And that's it. That's a basilisk lizard. It can literally run across the water. It's not like the Draco lizard that is called the flying lizard but doesn't actually fly, just glides. This actually does the thing that it's known to do.
Speaking of running across water, I found the thing that you can stand on, or dance on rather, stomp on, and not sink. It's called oobleck, and it's just a suspension of starch in water. And it's an example of what is called a non-Newtonian fluid, which is any fluid that doesn't have a consistent viscosity, and when force is applied, the viscosity is changed. So in this case, it's a liquid when you like run your hand through it slowly, but if you punch it, it like acts like a solid. And so that means like you can get on it and like continuously stomp and not sink. But if you stop, you start sinking. And the opposite, another non-Newtonian fluid, which is the opposite, which is thick at rest, but when force is applied, it becomes thin, is ketchup. Ketchup is a non-Newtonian fluid. So the reason it comes out better when you shake it or smack it is because you thin it by applying force.
Huh. I was going to say, like, how do they know if they can't apply force to it? Interesting. I looked this up, and my first results are the fact that the oobleck is the antagonist of a Dr. Seuss book.
Yeah, it is.
Bartholomew Cubbins and the oobleck.
Oobleck is named because of that Dr. Seuss.
It's the horrible gelatinous blob.
Just look up Oobleck non-Newtonian fluid.
That sounds fun. I'll have to make, 50 or 60 gallons worth of a batch and try it out.
Well, you could also just
in my
make
spare
a small
time.
batch and put it on a subwoofer. And then the force from the sound waves makes it like these interesting little waves.
I'll have to go get my subwoofer.
Go ruin a subwoofer for this.
All right. Do you have anything else on the lizard? The basilisk?
Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, that was the plumed basilisk lizard. For you out there in Podcastia, keep an eye out for snakes. Petrify some muggleborns. And walk across the waves like the basilisk lizard here in Life, Death, and Taxonomy.
Hey Taxonomy Titans, I just want to remind you that we now have a Patreon. Patrons can see full video episodes and get shoutouts on the show. But ultimately, it's a way for you to help us cover some costs and get even better. Still, reviews are the best way to help us grow. So if you haven't left one yet, we'd really love to hear from you. As always, thanks for listening and engaging.
Life, Death, and Taxonomy is my favorite in the world podcast.
Just like make a gel pack vest with this oobleck in it. So that like if somebody, it's lightweight, it's flexible, but when somebody shoots it, it acts like a solid.